when the SJB, before it came into opposition, it was part of, or most of the members right now were part of the UNP, Rehan. This question that keeps coming up over and over again is, why didn't the then UNP government do more to bring about change, do more to address serious issues that were raised back then, do more to investigate certain high-profile cases? Can one expect any change, going forward, considering that there were, 4 or 5 years given for the UNP to do what it promised it will do?
I think it's because of the inaction of the then government, and I think we all need to take responsibility for that. I'm not going to shy away from it because I was also part of helping that government in the 2015 election. But yes, we all know that there were certain things that were done, and I think that government is going to face the repercussions of that in a very harsh way. And I think the people of this country are not going to stay idle when these things keep on happening. So I honestly feel that, the SJB, if we come into power, we have to go behind all these things. I'm not saying that we need to start witch hunt, but what I'm saying is we need to give the 100% backing to the relevant law enforcement authorities to go and do their job and to bring these culprits to book. Because my fear is that if we keep on failing to bring these culprits to book, then the next time around, the people will vote unconventionally and bring someone who is far worse than the president that we have now. And that's a fear that I have. And the SJB have one chance to fix it. And I'm quite confident that we will be raising our voice. And I'm quite sure the leader of the SJB is very adamant on bringing these perpetrators to book. Whether others agree with him right now or not is not the question. But I think he's very determined that he will not be idle without taking action against these guys. So,
are there some who are disagreeing with him? You say whether others agree with him or not?
No, I don't think so. And he has given a platform to people to speak out. And I don't think, because I'm a part of the working committee and we have about 80 members, and not once have I seen anyone stand up and say, don't take any action against these people. And I think the leader has made it, I think Mr. Sajid Premadas has made it very clear that one of the foremost things when our government comes into place is that we will give justice to the people that actually deserve justice.
And you just recently tweeted also on this topic, and you mentioned that, there may have been certain deals back then. What exactly do you mean?
I think a lot of people got confused thinking that it was only my investigations that prompted me to say so. But anyone who wants to know what those deals were can read Ahimsa Vikramatunga's letter, the daughter of Lakanta Vikramatunga, of what she wrote, the then premier in 2019 or 2018. That letter is out in the open. That letter is out on my Twitter. So anyone who wants to who doesn't believe me, can surely trust the daughter of Lakanta because she has said whatever she wants. And I'm sure you also have read it, Iswaran. You have seen the allegations that she brought up. You have seen the replies that were given to her when she went and demanded for justice, where they said that, there are other priorities than Lakanta, and justice is not just about Lakanta. The quote was exactly that. And I think whoever doesn't believe me can go and ask Ahimsa, and I'm sure Ahimsa has more details than what I have.
Dinuk, I'd like to raise the same question to you about, these past deals that the SJB speaks about. Your party leader, Ranil Wickremesinghe, was then the Prime Minister. Do you think there were hidden deals?
Thanks, Isran, for asking that question. This is something that has been put towards us a lot. And, I have told people that if there is evidence of any deals, they have to come forward and present it to the relevant authorities and allow for the investigations to be held for those deals to come out. But we also need to understand what is the role of the politician in regards to these investigations to then decide whether deals were held or not. A politician is elected by the public. They're given a mandate. And in 2015, the mandate was to create independent institutions, create an independent judiciary, an independent police force, and allow those institutions to carry out their duties, which was done in 2015, courtesy of the 19th Amendment. I don't know whether you can then go and expect a politician to following up with having created the independent institutions, then go on and ensure that cases are tried and people are convicted, because in my eyes, that is just politicization once again of these independent institutions. Now, whether or not there are deals, these allegations that have been thrown around, very often there is very little or no evidence to support these allegations. Of course, if there is, I mean, those people need to come forward and present that evidence to the relevant authority. They don't need to present it to the public if they don't wish to. But definitely it needs to be presented to the authorities to allow for a proper inquiry into these allegations. And then if there are deals, then those who have had deals which have interfered with any form of justice, then they need to be dealt with.
But Ranil Wickremesinghe lost the election seemingly because he failed to deliver on the promises that not just he, but then President Maithripala Sirisena also made. Do you feel people would have trust in the UNP going forward?
I think trust can be regained. Definitely the people lost trust in the UNP post 2019 over many issues. And it is now up to, as you rightly said, or as you pointed out, and this discussion is about the younger politicians. And it is up to the younger politicians of the UNP to go back to the people and regain that trust. With the exodus of a lot of our members in 2020 to the SJB, it was in many ways a blessing in disguise. We were able to restart the party. We have opened it up to new younger people to come forward. Our ideology can be crafted along what these younger people want. We don't have the baggage from previous politicians. So the opportunity is there for the UNP to definitely regain the trust of the people. And I think we're on the front foot with the fact that we have new young faces coming forward.
Yes, Rehan, you want to say something on...
I just want to say I said vice versa, and I'd rather not comment about baggage because the people have voted and they have showed what sort of baggage.
Rehan, your mic is muted.
Because the baggage of we won because of the fact that we didn't have the excess baggage that is dealt at the EU. But then again, it was entitled to his own opinion as all of us.
But Rehan, Sajith Premadasa was still part of the UNP back then, and there's a lot that he could have done. He could have exerted more pressure. Was he just, running behind the leadership post, or was he really concerned about, the people's issues and getting solutions for the public?
Eastern, if you can just give me about 2 minutes to answer this. I was 8 years old when Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe became the leader of the UN. That was in 1994. I was roughly 8. Fast forward that I am 35 years old now. The UMP suffered an electoral defeat that put them below the JVP. They didn't have a single national. The only seat that they got, it is quite wrong for them to say that they had one seat because the seat that they got was not earned. It was a bonus seat. So having an opposition with one leader for so many years has not happened in, let alone developed nations, but in underdeveloped nations. Yes, I do understand that there is criticism that Mr. Premadasa could have done more, but you can only play with the cards that you have or the cards that you are dealt with. You can't play with any more cards. And the UMP was run to a level where the only opportunity they had of giving this leadership to someone like Ruwan or Naveen, and they didn't do that, and they put Mr. Wickremesinghe back into parliament, but they said it was a party consensus. So there is only a little bit that could have been said or done at that time, Eastern, because Sajith was not the Prime Minister. Sajith was only the Minister of Housing, and also Sajith's deputy leadership in the UMP meant very little. So I understand all these criticisms if Sajith indeed had a lot of power. But being a minister itself, Eastern, doesn't give a person the power to overrule someone as powerful and someone as I'm not going to go into personal insults, but someone as let's say level-headed or strong as Mr. Wickremesinghe. So it was very difficult for us to do politics, and that's why we split. So I think we all must accept collective responsibility. And I think Mr. Sajid Premadasa also will accept collective responsibility only on the basis that he was a member of the cabinet. But other than that, not in the basis that he could have done something, because there was very little that he could do.
Dinuk, I want to just come back to you on the internal politics of the UNP. There was a lot being said back then about who should be leader, who should not be leader, and there have been calls for people like Ruwan Vijayawardena to take on the leadership post. Yet that has not happened. Why is Mr. Wickramasinghe still holding on to the post of party leader? Why isn't he giving room for more younger people to maybe even enter parliament instead of him holding on to that seat?
No, it's when the party took the decision that we had to rebuild. We had to bring in new faces, new younger people, and we were at a point we are in a point of transition. So we decided that Mr. Wickramasinghe will continue to lead the party in the interim, and he would go into parliament because of his experience. We recognized that there was a dearth of experience in the parliament, and which he could come forward and play a pivotal role there. In terms of Mr. Vijayawardena, he had been made the party leader. Party operations are now under his purview. He is leading the entire party restructuring outside of parliament at the grassroots. And it is not just him, it is the assistant leader, Mr. Akhil Viraj Karyawasan, Mr. Palitha Bandara, General Secretary. So we have a lot of...
Ruwan Vijayawardena has been formally made the party leader?
He has been made the deputy leader. He is the party deputy leader, formally been handed over responsibilities of restructuring and rebuilding the party base. So we are going back. We recognize that we need to go back to the people and regain their trust. And so we have handed that task to a young leader to do so. At the same time, we do recognize that the country is in a situation of an economic crisis, a medical crisis, and overall there's just a breakdown in society due to this government's failings. So we do need someone experienced at the helm, so as when we are ready, so that in Parliament, the UNP continues to play a pivotal role, and which is why there was a unanimous decision that Mr. Wickramasinghe would go into Parliament.
I'll just take a couple of questions that have come up on Facebook. Either of you can respond to this. One is from Hiran De Silva, and the question is, are you doing enough at the ground level to get your message across to the public? Is there enough being done on the part of the UNP and the SJB? Maybe first, Dinu.
Well, we have definitely faced a bit of an uphill task because of the split in the party. And then, of course, COVID did come in, which meant that due to lockdown and all. But we are now revamping our messaging system. We're going a lot more online because we want the message to go to the youth, who is an extremely disgruntled group in the public. So we're approaching it in a new way. We're not giving up the traditional door-to-door campaigning, but we're putting a lot more onus into online media, online communication. That is the way of the future. So, the UNP can proudly say that we did have our 75th anniversary celebrations as a virtual celebrations. We are the first political party to do so. So definitely we're putting a lot of onus in taking the message to the grassroots, but we're also putting a lot of effort into focusing and finding new alternative methods of communicating with the people.
Yes, Rehan, how is the SJB? How is it taking its message across at grassroots level?
We have established party officers in almost every single electorate in this country. For example, the UMP does not have an office in Waligama, being the biggest or second biggest electorate in the whole of the Mathura district with 100 and something or 1,000 votes. There is no office for the UMP. And if can tell me the location of such an office, I would be happy to accept it. But we are doing is we are starting from scratch. But starting from scratch, can you imagine, we have, like I told you, already established grassroots officers. We have already appointed electoral organizers to almost every single one of these electorates. Also, my provincial council campaign started today, even though they say it's next year. So there are 37,000 houses in Valigham, and my goal is to at least cover 25,000 of them by at least going to about 150 houses a day. So I honestly think that, I mean, to be frank, Eastern, I think that there is no point in the SJB, the UMP going into a coalition with the SJB. But I think, and don't get me wrong, as long as our only issue is, and what we have told at repeated working committee meetings, is that as long as Mr. Wickramasinghe is the leader of the UMP, that we will not be going into any coalition. So I encourage people like Dino, who is also quite smart and who has done his part by the party. He has served in various capacities to the current former Prime Minister. I encourage you, Dino, to, you don't have to, I mean, don't take this the wrong way. I'm saying this out of all sincerity. Do your best to appoint a new leader, someone young, and get into a coalition, and let's work hand in hand to defeat the incumbent government. Because as long as there are splits, we may not be able to do this. But as long as Mr. Wickramasinghe is there, I can tell you that the people of this country will vote for Mr. Sajid Premadasa, and that's a given. And time will be the time.
Isn't there a dearth of experience that Mr. Wickramasinghe can bring to the coalition? He's been in politics for years and years. There's a lot that he knows. And even some SJB members have been openly saying that, they still feel that there is a lot that Mr. Wickramasinghe can do for the country. So why should he remain in politics?
Eastern, you can always have a wonderful door in front of you, and you may not have the key to open that door. And if you look at the letter that I wrote Mr. Wickramasinghe in 2017 or 18 requesting, and I had just got appointed to the Urban Council, I sent him a very heartfelt request where I did not discount the fact that he's experienced, but I said that one thing that I said was you need to have a little bit of luck when you do politics. I think that the 2099 election, he could have definitely won, but then there was a bomb blast and the sympathy went towards the former president and she won. In 2005, I think Mr. Wickramasinghe had yet another chance of winning, and I think the Rajapaksa stopped the vote coming in from the north and east, and that prevented him from winning. That being said, it should have stopped there, Israel. But soon after that election, the leadership of the party should have at least been given to Mr. Karu Jayasuriya or Mr. Sajid Premadasa. I would have preferred Mr. Karu Jayasuriya at that time, and the restructuring that Dino speaks about now could have happened then. But instead, Sri Lanka's biggest opposition party went and fielded a common candidate in 2010 and ended up losing. In 2015, I know personally, and Iswaran, you can speak about this with Mr. Karu Jayasuriya, he was ready to come forward as the candidate, and Mr. Sajid Premadasa was going to support Mr. Karu Jayasuriya as the candidate of that election in 2015. Instead, they went and created a common candidate, and I mean, what were they thinking? Did they really think that President Maithripala Sirisena will be a common president? Within 48 hours of him winning, he went and assumed control of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. So these are all gambles that they played, which have heavily affected the people of this country. And I personally believe that Mr. Wickramasinghe did those two moves, knowing the fact that if he loses the election, there is a clause within the UMP constitution saying that the president of the country automatically becomes the president of the UMP. And it has been proven again now by the fact that, I mean, yes, what is the need for an interim leader on whose party has lost elections from 1994? What is the point of an interim leader? So what I'm saying is all that experience doesn't matter, is that experience is being used to demolish a party that we all love. And there's no one that can say that I don't love the party, because both my granduncles were heavyweights in that party long before Mr. Wickramasinghe entered politics. My granduncle Monty was a minister from the 1940s, 1950s, and my granduncle Ranjan was a minister and a general secretary from the 1980s. So I very well know what this party is about. I love this party, but sadly, if the party has been run down by someone, then we can't be part of that party.
Isran, if you don't mind me just jumping in here, I think this is one of the biggest problems, and this is something that the young politicians need to change, is that once again, both myself and Rehan have got caught in a bit of a blame game. And we are not recognizing the bigger issues in the country right now. we're busy blaming either it's Mr. Sajid Premadasa or Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe for the woes of the opposition, without recognizing the simple fact that the reason the opposition is in the disarray that it's in right now is because we are not addressing the issues in the country. The public are facing extreme hardship on the economic side. Just last evening, the price of gas was doubled overnight with no warning whatsoever. Fuel prices are continually going up. Bread prices are going up. Cement prices are going up. The household economy is collapsing. And the opposition hasn't provided any viable alternative. They haven't been able to actually play the role of the opposition because we have got caught up fighting amongst ourselves while the government has been able to run scot-free. So,
but what's the alternative that the opposition can offer? Yes, I wanted to come to the point on the blame game as well. If that is what's required right now. But what is the alternative that the opposition can put forward? What can they are not in power, right?
The opposition needs to start presenting a viable alternative to the public, so that when it comes to the time of an election, the public will once again have the confidence in the opposition to give them the vote. We need to be able to go to the public and present to them solutions to the problems they're facing, solutions that this government has been unable to present. Until that is done, the opposition vote will not come to power to implement those solutions. And that is what needs to happen right now. We can talk about restructuring. We can talk about who's to blame for the split in the UNP, but that's not going to solve the problems currently. And to be honest, I'm pretty sure most of the viewers today don't really care about the splits in the UNP and the problems between the UNP and the SJB. They're worried about where their next meal is coming. How are they going to afford their children's school education? Are their children going to be able to go to school? Are the teachers going to be in school to teach them? These are the bigger issues that we have to be dealing with. And as younger politicians, it's our responsibility to make sure that the opposition stays on message, that they continue to play their role as the opposition in presenting a viable alternative.
Ethan, if I can just jump into that for a minute. Look at we have to take into consideration when Dinuk says viable alternative. I would like to ask him, in a time of a pandemic, in a time there are voters who take part in demonstrations are being dragged and placed on 14-day quarantine. When all these things are happening and when the government is going full on against demonstrations and people exercising their free right, for example, with what's happening to Hejaz, and all of these things, I just want to ask you, what sort of alternative do you want us to present? Because, for example, the fertilizer issue, we are the only party that has gone to the Supreme Court, petitioning the Supreme Court to give the farmers back their fertilizer. And I'm not saying this organizing it doesn't work, but we have petitioned the Supreme Court. There have been multiple times that we have petitioned the Supreme Court against these things. So please enlighten me on what sort of viable alternative are you speaking about? What more do you want us to do at the moment?
Well, we need to still go back to the public and actually present our message to them clearly, to show them that there is. If we talk about the fertilizer issue, for example, petitioning the Supreme Court, well done if you all have. I don't know what the legal jurisdiction is, so I'm not going to comment on that. However, is banning chemical fertilizer overnight a good move? No, it's not. It has left a lot of farmers, including myself, in grave strife. However, is it moving towards organic fertilizer? Yes, that's a good move. But it needs to be done in a systematic way. There are many farmers out there who also agree that organic fertilizer is the future. However, we need to then come forward and present that alternative and say, no, look, the government needs to stop what they're doing right now, banning it wholesale because it has failed, and instead present an alternative plan as to how can we move towards implementing organic fertilizer in the country. Simply going to court and all, that's all well and good. That is the role of the opposition. But unless the public is aware of what can be done instead, we're not going to be successful. Because at the end of the day, the voters want to see, they want to have a reason to give the vote to the opposition.
Now, for example, the opposition leader has visited many areas and met many farmers. He has done so in Anumadu a few days ago. He visited Tissamaharama. He went to some places in Hambantota. He has already asked us, electoral organizers, to organize meetings for him to come and meet the farmers. So what I'm saying is now, these are the things we are doing, Dinu. And these are the things we are doing. But I just want to ask you all, who in your party to this day has gone and listened to these farmers' problems?
Rehan, there are our members who are also moving on the ground. I mean, as I said, this
No,
is...
Dinu, I just want to know who.
No, but is Sajid Premadas also playing a media game here? I mean, we see him meeting the farmers and the others as well. But is this just for the spotlight, or is he actually, pushing for solutions?
The thing is, Iswaran, when the leader of the opposition, who's the fourth most constitutionally powerful person in this country, which is the area to visit farmers, there absolutely has to be a media presence, whether we like it or not. Because private media channels, including, I'm sure you know, Iswaran, they send out their reporters when they know the opposition leader is coming. So unless the opposition leader brings out media awareness to this, there is no way for the rest of the country to know. And that's why I'm telling Junub that he went to Anamadua. I don't know that. Now, I wouldn't have known that he went to Anamadua if I didn't watch the news. So there has to be a level of media presence that has to be there when he's there. So I think he's doing both these. And we shouldn't remember the fact that he is the only grassroots politician who has ever beaten Mahinda Rajapaksa's election in 2002 in Hambantota. He has constantly gone away from his comfort zone and won Hambantota continuously from the UMP from the year 2000 onwards. So what I'm saying is some sort of credit has to go to the man for doing what he's doing. And yes, there are sometimes, and another thing we have to understand is that there are 2-3 very important media channels that are working 100% for the government. And what the people are seeing is only what they see on 1 or 2 channels, whereas the rest of the channels are all based on a government agenda. So the reason I asked Diluk was because when he said we have to present the Bible alternative, I said, yes, he is going. He is meeting them. He is getting us to meet them. But what I want to say is that the UMP also has a media presence. They also have their media network, but I have not seen one day where they have gone to discuss these farmers' issues. So I think as long as the UMP figures out that they too are part of the opposition, and they too also have to do their part, even though they have just one member in parliament, how is this going to go forward? Because they can't continue.
Why can't Rehan, coming back to this whole blame game and blaming each other, blaming the government, blaming the other party? Isn't there room now, especially for young politicians, young opposition politicians, to look at doing something beyond just the usual political game and trying to get the opposition together? I mean, they don't have to be part of the coalition, but working together as one opposition to put more pressure on the government and prevent the sort of issues that we are seeing now with the price hike, with the with the fertilizer issue and so on.
Iswaran, it's very difficult to have not play the blame game, because each time the UMP talks about the SJB doors being open to them, they go ahead and fire all our local government members who have even I lost my post because of the fact that, I mean, if you're looking at reconciliation within a group as opposition party, everyone has to work together. This can't just be done by the SJB. But I do agree, and I agree with you 100%, Iswaran, that there has to be a lot more output coming from the youngsters. And I see that happening more often, because where would you have done this chat, even on what you're doing on Zoom now, with 2 young politicians such as me, myself, and Dinuk? It would have never been a possibility before. But now, more and more the youth of this country are speaking up. More and more people like Dinuk also have their following. People like me have their following, have a certain following. So I think we can't expect things to happen overnight. And
I want to bring this when you spoke on technology. This is something that is being mentioned even right now on our Facebook page as well. If the opposition is using technology effectively enough, especially young opposition politicians, using technology effectively enough to get the message across to the public and push for solutions.
Either when you look at my page. Sorry. Dinuk, I'll let you go, Dinuk. Sorry, I took most of the time. Dinuk, your turn now.
No problem. No, so I think, I think definitely a lot of the younger politicians are now resorting to the use of social media. I mean, we have now, due to COVID, we've actually brought in Zoom meetings, and all our district meetings are now carried out over Zoom. And it's very interesting to see that outside of Colombo, in places like Monoragala, Matara, that it is still the old brigade, the old activists of the party. That's the the real heart and soul of the party are logging into Zoom. Their kids are helping them log in. So we're introducing this new technology to the members of the party, and I think that is something that a lot of the younger members in the political circles have introduced and brought forward. We always talk about the need for technology in this fourth revolution, but we're actually seeing that happen right now in terms of the way the political parties are communicating. Definitely with the UNP. I've heard that the SJB is also apparently running Zoom meetings as well now. So definitely that technology is being brought forward, and that I think can be laid squarely at the feet of the younger politicians.
But is the opposition using social media more effectively, like Twitter and Facebook? Because that is where most the young people are, and eventually you will be targeting these younger, voters to win votes, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is an evolving game day by day. There's definitely shortcomings in the use of social media by the political circles. We're stuck in the old ways of, posting a picture or posting a comment, something like that. So this is something that we are also going back to the drawing board. We're looking at. Definitely, it's not moving as fast as we would like, but social media is now being given. Definitely, from the terms of the UNP, social media is now our main focus.
I have to agree with on all the things he said, whether I like it or not. And I think we need to up on the social media game. And I think there's a serious deficiency when it comes to social media presence on Twitter. And I hope to bring that up at the working committee with the leader, saying that we need much more youth on social media, because it's only then that this new generation will follow us. It's not possible. So I do agree with the points that he mentioned.
Rehan, I'll just raise the question that has been posed on Facebook, and maybe you can respond to that. Since the SJB has a large presence in Parliament, this is from Sharanya Sekaran. She's asking about quotas for women representation in politics, and her question is: quotas for women representation in politics have been heavily advocated against, on the basis that it pushes women who are unable to get elected on their own merit to positions, and it is unfair to others who do get elected. Does this same argument apply to youth quotas? Will this not be another opportunity for nepotism to thrive? It's not about women, but it's about youth quotas.
When it comes to nepotism, my very famous thing that I tell people is that when they ask me about families being in politics, it shouldn't be a qualification, and neither should it be a disqualification. It's all based on merit, right? When appointing them to positions, yes, I agree that there should be a certain level of transparency. But other than that, I think being related to a politician should neither be a qualification nor should it be a disqualification, because you don't choose who your parents are, and you don't choose who your grandparents are. You don't choose before you come out of your mother's stomach whose mother's stomach you're going to come out of. So it's very unfair to use that term nepotism when it comes to certain things, because, like I said, for me, Iswaran, even though my granduncles ended up in Parliament, I started my politics at the grassroots level. I started off at the Valigama Urban Council. Now, that is the lowest form of elections that you can get into. So my answer to Sharanya would be that yes, it could harbor some sort of nepotism, but that is also in parties that thrive on nepotism. So I don't think the Samagijana Balaveka is a party that gives individual or whatever preferences. We don't give preference to name over talent. The talent has to be there, and the name doesn't matter. So I think the starting block of this was for the 25% youth representation, because then we at least have a 25% solid representation. And after that, after a while, it can get more and more and more. But what that 25% says is not that there is only going to be 25% of youth representation. What it means is there has to be a 25 guaranteed representation of youth. So that's what the private member motion entails. So I hope that answer is sufficient for Sharanya.
Rehan, there is another question posed directly to you on Facebook, and it's from Jinal again. And this is going back to your comment on Karu Jayasuriya. And Dinal is saying, Rehan, you wanted Mr. Karujaya Surya to lead the party in 2005. Are you okay with him crossing over and joining then Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa with 20 plus MPs in 2006 or 2007 and coming back to the UNP in 2009 alone? Rehan, your mic.
To be very honest with you, I think Dinal has got slightly confused because I never said that I supported Mr. Karujaya Surya to be the leader in 2005. What I said was that I agreed and I supported Mr. Karujaya Surya to be the candidate in either 2010 or 2015. In 2015, it was because Mr. Karujaya Surya at that time was already back in the UNP and Mr. Wickramasinghe did take him back. And it is not only Mr. Karujaya Surya that is back in the UMP. Mr. Naveen Dissanayake, who crossed over, is also now very much part of the UMP. So I'm asking you all, don't pick and choose and don't cherry pick who you all are against and who you all are for just based on the fact that they crossed over. Now, going one step further, I would like to say that one of the main reasons Mr. Karujaya Surya crossed over was because the UMP at that time was ridiculing the war victory, whereas we as a responsible opposition should have supported the then government to win the war. And that is the main reason why those 17 crossed that crossed over, including my stepfather, they were the cream of the UMP. There was Mr. M.H. Mohammed, there was Mr. G.L. Piris, Manu Vijayaratne, my stepfather, there was Mr. Gamini Lokuge, there was Mr. Mahinda Samarasinghe, there was Johnston Fernando, there was Gayatri Jayasekara. Now, these were the top tier of the UMP. And the only thing they requested for leadership change. And when that leadership change is not given, Iswaran, how do you go among the grassroots to get support? So what I'm saying is, yes, them crossing over was not, in my opinion, a wise thing that they did, but they had no choice. What choice did they have?
Dinuk, again, I want to come back to the question about, why can't the opposition, do more? Why can't young opposition politicians do more to address some of the core issues? I mean, is there another step that, you feel that, young politicians should take to push for solutions?
I think it's twofold there, Isran. I think on one hand, definitely the young politicians need to step forward. I don't think they just need to follow what the seniors in the party are saying. They need to present their own ideas and they need to take charge and take leadership over issues in the country.
There needs to be new thinking, right?
There absolutely needs to be new thinking that comes forward, and that is what the young politicians need to do. Unfortunately, we find very often the younger politicians who are coming forward fall into the same way of thinking that is been in politics in Sri Lanka for the last 3-4 decades. And I think that leads us to the other issue as to how can we attract new, young, educated people into politics in the country. Until that happens, I mean, there's a host of issues that are obstacles to young people coming forward into politics, from financial to societal to cultural. So until those issues are also overcome, those obstacles are overcome, we are going to find an issue where young politicians who are in the system may not be as adept to presenting new ideas. So definitely those who are in the system need to come forward with their new ideas, as well as the system itself needs to be adjusted to allow for younger people to come forward.
Ishwaran, if you can just let me add one thing to that. Can you believe, I absolutely agree with what Dinuk is saying, but can you believe that to become a laborer, to get a laborer job in this government, you need to pass 8th grade, right? Can you believe that there is no educational qualification to enter any form of governance in this country? So unless we add that, and unless the government, any government enforces that, what more can we expect is even from the youngsters when there is no educational qualification to be a legislator?
Rehan, keeping the opposition aside, do you think there's an opportunity for young opposition politicians to maybe reach out to young members of the government to see if, they can come together and they can work on solutions critical for critical issues in the country.
If you look at the leadership tier that we have, if you combine all their ages, it comes to 200 plus. Right? We have the Prime Minister who's 70 plus. We have Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the President, who is 70, I think. We have the Speaker who is over 70. Half the cabinet is over 50. The only young, I don't think there's a young cabinet minister, to be honest. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think the only
I think Mr. Namal says.
Yes, and that again is, I think that, okay, rather not comment on that. But anyway, other than Mr. Namal Rajapaksa, correct me if I'm wrong, Dinuk, I don't think there is any young cabinet minister. Whereas the world, all over the world, they have gotten over this giving power to older people, and now they are electing young prime ministers, young cabinet members, and young. So I think as long as the party systems are run by people over 60 or over 65 or over 70, and unless opportunities to youngsters are not given to lead these parties, I think all this is going to fall on deaf ears, because there's so much that youngsters can do, and there's so much that youngsters can advise the older people.
Why can't young politicians in the opposition reach out to people like Namal Rajapaksa, like even those who are not in the cabinet but who are still members of the government, the young members like Kanchana Vijayasekara? Why can't you reach out to them and look at trying to work on some of these issues?
Now, because you're on Twitter, Isran, you would have seen that I support bipartisanship to a level that no other person in my party does so. I have reached out to Namal countless number of times to get things done for people, and quite a number of few times he has done it. I have thanked Kanchana publicly, and I have reached out to Kanchana, and we have done one of the most successful vaccination programs in the whole country together. And I have to say that I got immense support from Kanchana and people like Nipranoga. So that's what I'm saying is, there has to be more Dinuks, and there has to be more Rehan in order for this to work. And the only way for that to work is that the youth quota has to be guaranteed, and the educational qualifications have to be put in place for youngsters to enter.
Isran, if you don't mind, I just want to jump in there also. And I think that definitely I agree, bipartisan politics is a must, especially in Sri Lanka's political setup. We have a situation where the public views any sort of interaction between politicians from opposing sides of the aisle as being some sort of deal politics, which I think that we need to get rid of that. Because as long as we view the opposition with hostility, and opposition, when I mean opposing a member of the opposing party with any sort of hostility, bipartisan politics goes out the window. At the same time, I think it also comes down to the need for the voters themselves to start calling for that. I think the voters need to stop saying, he's Pohotu, he's UNP, he's SJB, so I don't want my guy dealing with him. I think that the voters also need to start calling for this bipartisan politics, because at the end of the day, it is going to be the voters who benefit from bipartisan politics. And there is that fear amongst most politicians that if they're seen to be working closely with an opposing member, that they have a deal and they're worried that they're going to lose their votes. And I think that comes back down to the blame game there.
Right, so we are exactly at 12, so we will have to end this discussion. Thank you, Dinuk, for joining us, and thank you, Rehan, for being part of this program, for your input. And to all those who joined us on Facebook and YouTube also, we thank you for being part of this program. And do join us again for our next Daily Mirror Live discussion. Till then, stay safe and have a good day.
Thank you very much for having us, East. Thank you, Dinuk.
Thanks a lot, Isran. Thanks, Rehan.
Record.